others hijack it in their own name to make money from. For be warned, our enlightenment is not something that will happen overnight. We're no prophet sitting under a tree who will suddenly jump up and say we are enlightened. No, no, no. Our enlightenment is a process. It may take 1,000 years, and we could always lose it. We could always slip back into the nightmare of our childhood and its self-appointed guardians. We must learn, then, to agree with that wisest of modern monarchs, Frederick the Great, who told his citizens, argue, debate as much as you like, but in the end, obey. For it is in obeying you are truly free. What price of freedom based on action? My freedom to act is merely my right to oppress you and you me. No, no. True freedom is the freedom to think, to examine, to question. Hold that, and our enlightenment is safe. Lose it, and all is lost. It's a standard degree question, that. Is Immanuel Kant the greatest of all modern revolutionaries, or the most reactionary of all possible thinkers? And you can also hear he does something very important there. He makes a division between what you can do in your public life as a debater, what you can say, and how you should actually act as a citizen, and how you should have to conform to the standards of your time, which kind of brings in neatly our next topic, which is personal politics.
Can I just say that was a wonderful performance. It's also a very fascinating document in its own right, quite extraordinary. As you say, reactionary or revolutionary. Fabulous. And yes, so that leads us neatly into the idea of personal politics and choices that you make, but you don't feel that you can force other people to make.
And instead of your Pollock reading, because we have actually run out of time, or we're going to run out of time, my colleague over there is about to give you a poetry reading instead.
And this is from the Book of Convictions. Fourth in the trilogy. It's only just out, actually.
You can buy it from
from our web shop. So if you go to cartwheels-collective.co.uk, one of the categories on the navigation bar is web shop, and if you click that link, you can go to the web shop and buy either by PayPal or you can email us.
Oh, and if I've whetted your appetite for nice short little philosophical pieces, you can always buy my book.
Oh, absolutely. This is fantastic.
Also buyable from the web shop.
It's called Not What One Was, or A History of the Concept of Justice.
And it takes you through, it's written against the background of the news events of 2007 and 2008. And it takes you through a history of justice, which is actually very racy and designed to be kind of potboilery.
From Plato to Deleuze.
You'd be using always the examples of that week. Now, that was the year the banks collapsed and the economic system tottered. So it was a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful experience writing about justice, which includes economics, using the news from that year.
And Ricardo and people like
yeah,
that.
That's right. I had a lovely experience. The week the bank collapsed, loved the experience. The week the banks collapsed was the week I happened to be writing on Adam Smith and his theories of the banks. So it was kind of you could go back into the 18th century and look what happened now, which takes you to that historical reflexing. But I better shut up because Whitsy's going to do her poem.
Well, I just also want to say, though, that it's the beauty of writing sort of rants and political philosophy in response to news and current events is like the satirists thing, where somebody said to Rory Bremner, oh, all these terrible things were happening, it must have been a great time for you. And he said, well, no, not exactly, because obviously there are all these things to worry about, and he wasn't happy that bad things were happening to other people.
Of philosophy.
But it gave him a lot of material, and that's kind of how this book works. So this is fantastic, and it says on the back, bringing unique takes on ancient, classical, historical,
Can I have my poem, please?
And contemporary philosophical ideas from the history of thought. Floodlight that illuminates what's been going on, and nothing is safe from its dazzlingly critical gaze. I do recommend it. A snip at £8.50. Right, okay, I think I've just got time for this poem, which is called Fair Trade. Why aren't all goods fair trade? Why just coffee and tea, chocolate and some fruit, maybe some clothes if they're made from plants? Slave labour in China. We hear appalling things that folks, including children, work in Dickensian conditions merely to make cheap clothes and plastic kitchenware and gadgets and souvenirs and ornaments and garden stuff and everything for us, so we can stuff ourselves with treats of every kind on a daily basis, or weekly, monthly for the at all restrained. So why, asks this book, why don't we have a fair trade mark that encompasses working conditions and health, not just pay, and make it across the board, not just for some foodstuffs? The shepherd sighs a long sigh. Because industry isn't like that. By the time you've legislated, whatever it is will have changed. Because human endeavour is swifter than human power to regulate. Good for the internet, rubbish for working conditions. And in the 19th century, we tried to regulate things, and the bosses just adapted whatever practice it was to sidestep them. Whether working hours or age of workers didn't matter. We outran slave labour. We outran slave labour in the West not by clever laws and regulation, but by shipping the situation to other countries, other continents. But it can't go on. Surely it can be stopped, agonises this book, thinking how hateful it is to pull a cracker and delight in the toy that tumbles out, and the hat, the snap, and oh joy, the balloon, to revel and glory in the end result of someone else's untold and unspeakable suffering. To have fun is surely to want it for everyone else too, or at the very least to have it without harming their comfort, asks this book. How can real fun be had in the products of another's unhappiness? That can't be right. The shepherd sighs again. If you want fun without blood, then your best bet is to make your own crackers from scratch. But then I'll know what's in them, says this book, sadly starting to look into making paper. You can make some for me, smiles the shepherdess, and I'll make some for you. The book brightens, but the shepherd adds under his breath, fun has been had in the teeth of human suffering since time began. The shepherdess smiles again on hearing him and replies, that too is true. But don't you think that so many people wondering why everything they buy can't be fairly traded is a start? Sometimes there is hope just in the numbers asking the same question.
A poem about politics. Well, we have been with Sid and Dio, just beginning to think about finishing, and this has been our political show. Sorry there has been no Porlock. We did bring it in, and it will happen next time, but we did run out of time.
And you've had wonderful stand-up philosophy instead of storytelling, so I think that's all rather wonderful. It's all been from memory, and...
oh, yes, so sorry, I do everything from memory. I'm so badly dyslexic, everything gets done by memory.
And all the books of Trinity, should you be interested at all in buying them, they're all between £3 and £4.
And our next show will be a fortnight today, and that is going to be a show on abstract art, abstract thought, and the nation of abstraction. And I will probably tell some abstract stories, because I do certainly have some, and I know Whitsith over there has an awful lot of abstract poetry up her sleeve.
Oh, but don't worry, it will be performance geometric poetry.
Performance geometric poetry, isn't
Yes.
that a contradiction in terms?
No, it's not at all dry, it's very lively.
Okay. So just taking us into the news, shall we ask you a very quick riddle? Those of you from the Exeter book, as all our riddles are, on the way a miracle, glass, water became bone. Any ideas? On the way a miracle, water becomes bone. It used to be a sculpture here in the Phoenix, actually. They used to have a sculpture of a little cube. The normal accepted answer is...
Ice.
But actually, if you listen to it, it doesn't have to be ice.
It could be foam.
It could be foam. In fact, Wizith will do it on the way again so you can hear that.
On the way a miracle, water became bone.
That was from the 10th century Exeter book. And we have been Wizith and Dio, and if I'm lucky, this is the news.
From the Sky News Centre at 10, the largest demonstration so far against government spending cuts takes place later. More than 20,000 students are planning to march through central London to protest against the planned increase in university fees. They believe it would lead to an unfair higher education system, with unis charging up to £9,000 a year. These students from Reading say there's still time for MPs to change their minds.
It's not a done deal. They still have this window of opportunity to really make a difference and say no to the cuts that the Coalition are proposing on universities.
I really hope that once the MPs see the concern and the anger from students, that they really will think twice about the decision that they possibly might make.
Ex-Navy chiefs have condemned the government's defence cuts. In a letter to The Times, a group of commanders have criticised the decision to scrap the aircraft carrier Ark Royal and fleet of Harrier jets. They say it'll leave the Falkland Islands open to attack from Argentina. The signatories include former Navy boss Lord West. Defence Minister Nick Harvey dismisses their claims over costs.
The suggestion they're making in the newspaper this morning that it's going to cost 7 times as much to run Tornado as Harrier is complete nonsense. I'm sorry, they've just got that totally wrong.
3 former Labour MPs must have their trials for alleged fiddling of their expenses heard in a criminal court. David Chater, Elliot Morley and Jim Devine had appealed to the Supreme Court to have their cases decided by Parliament. All 3 denied the charge of fraud. Singapore Airlines is taking 3 of its Super Jumbos out of service for a couple of days. They're making precautionary changes to the plane's Rolls-Royce engines after a similar move by Qantas.